Okay, so so today we officially start our first lecture module, which is actually all about sets, relations, and functions. So this is basically not something new to you. I'm sure all of you, as well as all of us, have studied this in our high school mathematics, especially in like 11th class. So a lot of this will be a kind of revisit. But as I had mentioned in the earlier lectures, the main thing is even if you have studied something in your previous high school or in your first, second semester, you need to connect it with your computer science and IT branch. Okay, so let us get started with the sets first. Okay, so what is a set? So you can see a definition on screen, but what is set according to you? Please, I would like to see responses in the chat. So what is set according to you? When we say a set, okay, so collection of elements, collection of well-defined objects. So it's a collection. That's what most people are pointing, right? It's a collection. And then what kind of objects? It could be different kinds of objects, right? Okay. So set is definitely a collection. Uh, Undoubtedly, it's a collection. And it's a collection of objects, right? So one particular word I have written here is distinct objects. Okay, distinct object means they are all going to be unique, right? So yeah, so duplicates is possible, but if you, as we'll see, even if you write duplicate, it boils down to the same set. So even if you have a repetition, that's allowed, but all the way it boils down to the same set. Okay, so eventually if you write it in actual notation, you should always write in unique form, because even if there are repetitions, they all are actually belong to the same object. So in general, when we say a set, we say it's a collection of distinct objects, right? Like when I cite these some examples, very different examples, like people in a class, like in your class. Okay, if I go by the chat, Rohit, Ankita, Ashish, so all these are uh, objects, right? Now suppose there's someone in class with same name, right? So so either I have to use their surname, which is different, or I have to just write it once, right? Because it's a collection of distinct objects if I want to boil it down to a particular set. Because in general, repetitive objects are represented by a single entity because it should be all distinct. Similarly, suppose classes offered by a department, okay, so some course names, or colors of a rainbow, okay, or for that matter, suppose states of matter, solid, liquid, glass, plasma, or states in US, okay. Or let us look at this, right? What do you see there? There's no common property here, right? They are all non-related. Okay, so this is an important point, that most of the time, you, as you can see here, all these elements or all these objects of this collection were related. All of them belong to one class. Or if you look at this second example, all of them were classes offered by a department. So all of them were some courses. Similarly, all of them were colors. All of them were states of matter. So all the first five things that you see, what is the common thing that connects all these examples? What is the common thing that you can find all in all of them? All are of same type, or we can say yes. So this is also distinct, right? All of them are distinct. But what is common in the first five? Yes, exactly. They are all related. All the elements are related, and they have some. They seem to have some common property, right? That's how we say that they are related, right? But if you look at the last example, there's no relation. You have one number. There's a character. There's a color. There is a state name, right? So this example is to highlight that in general, we normally have related objects as part of a set, but there's nothing which stops you from having non-related elements also as part of set. Okay, so any collection of distinct objects can be a set. Okay, so it could be related. Okay, you can define it by means of some property, right? Or it could be completely unrelated. Okay, this is completely allowed. So let's kind of move to more formal way of the way we define a set. So a set is an unordered collection of distinct objects. Okay, and what are those objects called? Those objects are called elements or members of the set. Okay, so three main things coming out from this definition. One, which we already know, that set is a collection of distinct objects, and the other property which is coming out is it's an unordered collection. Okay, by distinct we know that the objects are unique. Okay, I'm sorry for bad writing today. The writing pad is not working well. Okay, but what do you mean when I say unordered collection? Distinct objects is fine, but what do we mean when we say, you know, it's an unordered collection? Yes. Okay, so someone is saying objects could be arranged in random order. Anything else? Any other idea? Exactly. So that's what whoever spoke first also said the same thing. I would prefer you write it so that I know who is speaking and I can address you. So as the two students already said, unordered basically means that the order isn't important. Okay, so order isn't important. Okay, that means suppose in simpler terms, if I give you a set, say 1 2 comma 3, then if I write suppose 3 2 1 or 2 1 3, all of them are same set. Order does not matter. Whatever order you choose, it will not mean that it's a different set. Okay, so if I write 1 2 3, or I write say 2 1 3, or any order of these three elements, okay, it is still going to be the same set. So order is not important. Okay, and the second property we learned is they are distinct. That means if I say write 1 comma 1 comma 2 comma 3, it is actually also the same set, because even if the any object is repeated, we cannot technically say it's a set because it should have distinct objects. So when you boil it down to set notation, it will also become again 1 2 3. Okay, so by this definition at least two things are clear: that one, that order is not important, and repetition is also allowed. Like even if you have repetition, it will again be the same set, right? So while set allows to have random order or repetition, there is one more discrete data structure which is called a list. Although it's not in your syllabus, but it's very relevant to computer science field. In list, the thing is all these two properties are not allowed. You need to have a specific order. It's pathetic to write with a mouse. Okay, so you need to have a specific order, and in list the other thing is repetition is not allowed. Okay, there is you cannot have duplicate elements. Okay, in set it's allowed because ultimately you are going to replace them with a single entity, but in list both of these properties are not allowed. Okay, and both of them very frequently come in computer science, so you should know the difference. Specifically in terms of order, if you have any random order of elements, it's still going to be the same set. But if I say it about the list, all of them are going to be different. Okay, this won't be allowed in list in itself, but 1 2 3 and 2 1 3 will be two different lists. Okay, so that makes set different from list. Set is an unordered collection and of distinct objects. Okay, and what are the objects called? Objects are either called the elements of the set or they are called the members of that set. Okay, and in general, a set is said to contain those elements or members, right? And if you recall, this is how your membership operator looks like. If I write A and this operator, this means A is an element of capital A. Okay, so A is a member of this set A. Okay, and if I put a vertical line, then means A is not an element or it does not belong to set A, right? So this is your first notation that is introduced in this module, that if you want to say some element is a member of some set, you use the notation, this notation, membership notation. And if you want to say it's not in set, you write it with a vertical line, right? And in general, in terms of notation, whenever we are dealing with sets, you will see we use uppercase letters, and for elements of set we normally use lowercase letters, as you can see here. Okay, so just to summarize, what is a set? A set is an unordered collection of distinct objects, and those objects are your elements or members, right? Now, let us see some more notations in sets. So, in general, the way you define a set is you give it a name and you put it element in these curly braces. Okay, so whatever you put in the curly braces, it could be number, it could be character, any sort of objects. That is how we define a set. Okay, a set is defined by its name, and then the elements are defined within the curly brackets that you see here. Okay, and in general, the different elements or members of a set are separated by commas. So in this example, S is a set and its members are apple, pear, and grape. Okay, so if I have to write it, so I'll write that, I can write it like formal method, I'll write it like this. So apple is a member of S. Okay, similarly, pear is a member of S, and so on. Okay, and main thing which we got from the definition is order and repetition do not matter in set. Okay, so all these are equivalent. If I write 139, 913, 1139, okay, so you can see from the first two examples, order is not relevant. Okay, and in last example, you can see some elements have been repeated. Okay, so repetition also doesn't matter. Okay, so if somebody asks you how many sets do these examples denote, it's just one set. Okay, so in general, order and repetition do not actually affect your set or set definition. Okay, so any collection of any unordered collection of objects within the curly braces is your set. Okay, and main thing to remember is order and repetition do not matter for its construction. Okay, any questions? It's very fundamental, like this kind of a revision for you. Any questions till this point? Okay, it should be okay. Okay, great. So let us move to a very important part, which is very much related to the follow-up modules we'll take, that is set representation. Okay, now how do we represent sets? Right, if you see our first slide, we saw, okay, anything between curly braces is a set and we give it a name, right? But in general, you cannot always follow this method, right? So what are the standard methods by which you can represent a set? Okay, in general, there are two standard methods for set representation. First of which is known as the roster method. Okay, in roster method, what you do, you list all the members of a set. Okay, whenever this is possible. You know, sometimes you have infinite members, so you cannot write all of them. But whenever it is possible, you list all the members one by one. Okay, within the curly braces. Like if you consider the example, suppose I consider a set B, which is all vowels in the English alphabet. Okay, so I write B, and within curly braces, I list all the members of the set, which is all the vowels, A, E, I, O, U. Right? Similarly, if I ask you, write the set of all the consonants, so you are expected to write all the consonants. Right? Similarly, the other example, like suppose O is the set of odd positive integers less than 10. So you list all the members, okay, one by one. Such kind of method is known as roster method, okay, wherein you list all the members of set uh, within the curly braces, right? Now, suppose I ask you this question: give me the set of all consonants, right? What would be the trivial way? You will just give it a name, say C, and you will start listing all the like all the members, right? Which is very like a very redundant way to do it, right? Or write all the way from B C till Z, right? Is there some other way? Okay, not moving to the other class of method, but is there some other way, right? So the other way is to use ellipsis. Okay, so ellipsis basically means I'm still in roster method, but sometimes, you, if there's some pattern in your elements, what you can do is you can write some initial elements. Okay, like I can do for consonants like this: set C of consonants. It starts with B, C, D, F, and assuming that there is a constant pattern, I'll just write ellipses, which are like three dots, and then I'll end it with, say, Y and Z. Okay, just to avoid listing all members. It was still limited to 26 size, but imagine, like, suppose I tell you, write all the odd numbers from 1 to 1000, then listing all of them is difficult, right? So for the sake of representation, what they do, you can use ellipses. Okay, but the important point is ellipses should only be used when general pattern is very obvious. You can easily read out the pattern. There should be no confusion, right? Like you can see the example that, suppose I want to write set of positive integers less than 100. Okay, so I'm writing 1 2 3 and I end with a 99. Okay, assume that I know the general pattern, right? But this ellipsis should never be used if it results in a confusion. Okay, so let me give you an example. Suppose I give you a set C which is 3 5 7. Okay, what will come next? Okay, if I use this ellipsis notation, what do you think should come next? Anyone? Okay, someone is saying 9. Okay, and what is the pattern that you guess it's 9? It's odd integers, right? They're all odd. Yeah, they're all odd numbers. Anyone thinking beyond 9 out of all entire class? Anyone thinking some other number? Okay, great, Japsimar. This is what I wanted. Okay, great. Japsimar is thinking 11. Okay, Rahul also 11. What is the point of saying 11? Exactly, prime numbers. I'm so sorry for this. Okay. Right? So you can see here the pattern is not obvious. If I put it just 3 5 7 and I just keep dots, I didn't put end element, which would at least give me a guess what is this pattern all about, then definitely ellipsis should not be used. It should only be used where you can unambiguously say the pattern, right? So as you can see in this example, both are correct, 9 as well as 11. Okay, now if I give it in just in roster method where I don't know the property, it's not an obvious way to represent the entire set, because you can see there's an ambiguity, right? So in general, ellipses are only used when you don't have any confusion, in stating what could be the members, right? So this was your roster method. What is roster method? Wherein you list all the members, all the members whenever it's possible, or you use ellipses if a general pattern is known, right? But if you look at this, whether you use ellipses or not, this is still very redundant way. Okay, and you can see with ellipses, a lot of confusion can also arise, right? So what could be a better way of representing a set? Any direct idea, right? If one method was to list all the members. Excellent. By using some definition. okay, or by using some property. Okay, like we, in this case we said that if it is odd numbers then it's 9. So if I had mentioned the property, I could easily unambiguously say what is the next number, right? So that is what brings or motivates the second form of representation, which, as Hardik correctly pointed out, is the set builder form. Okay, wherein you specify the common property which links or connects all the members together. Okay, so but one thing is, exactly, Zishan. But one thing is, as I before I define this set builder notation, as I said, the intuitive idea which you all pointed out is you're going to connect them via a common property, right? So if I just go back to our first example, can such sets be represented by set builder form then? Out of these six examples, which examples do you think can be represented via that form? Okay, we have not seen that form, but I gave you the intuitive idea, right? They are going to be linked by some common property, right? So which of these examples can be written in that manner then? Basically all five of them, because all five of them, if you remember, have some common thing in them, right? It's a class, it's courses, it is colors, it's states in US. So all of them have some common connection. That connection is what will be the fundamental of your set builder form. But if you look at the last example, there's no way you can define it. Okay, so in general, that's why a lot of books normally, when they say set, they also sometimes in the definition say collection of related objects, because related word gives you a basis of writing them in terms of, you know, a common property. Okay, so so that was just to keep in mind that it's not possible that all of them could be written in set builder form. Okay, so let us see what is this set builder notation. In set builder notation, as all of you correctly pointed out, what we are going to do, we are going to write the set in terms of the common property that all the members should possess. Okay, so all the elements in the set are referred by stating some common property which they should possess. Okay, and as I said, it's normally used when it's like kind of impossible to list all the elements of the set, right? Like if I tell you write all the natural numbers, it's not possible for you to write all of them, right? Because there are infinite number of them. So in general, whenever it's impossible to list all the elements of set, but provided they have some common property, you use the set builder notation. Okay, and in set builder notation, this is how you write it. Okay, you write the name of the set. Okay, then you put the curly braces because this is always the notation of set, and then you write some descriptive element, okay, which is going to represent all the members of that set. Okay, this is normally called a descriptive element. And then you write this vertical bar, or in some books we also see a colon, okay, which actually means such that, and then you state the common property. Okay, so if you look at a set builder notation, what are the prime components there? One is the name of the set, which is as we know, a uppercase letter. Okay, then is the descriptive element which represents all the elements of that set, and then after your this vertical bar or colon, you write the property which defines the members of that set. Okay, so I've done a color code notation for this, so you can see how do we read this. We say that B is a set of, okay, so curly braces represent this phrase is the set of X, and this represents such that, okay, which means whatever is going to be said after that are the properties. So B is the set of X such that X is an even integer, which is the first property, and the comma in this side of your set builder notation represents an and. Okay, and X is greater than 0. Okay, so basically B is actually set of all positive integers. Okay, so in general, whenever you have a set builder notation, in general, what you have is you have the name of the set, and then you have curly braces to denote the set. Then you have a descriptive element. Okay, and all the descriptive elements are the members of the set. Okay, then you put a vertical bar and state what properties should the members have, right? So by this, you get a compressed notation of your set, okay, by just listing the common property. Okay, so let us see some examples. Okay, so like one example is, suppose I have to write set of all odd positive integers less than 10. So I give the name O, descriptive element X, such that X is an odd positive integer less than 10. Okay, I have written it in form of a statement. Okay, but you can write it also mathematically. We'll see that shortly. Okay, so you can see what basically set builder notation is doing. It's just representing all members by a common property. Okay, now let's see some more examples. Suppose capital Z is the notation you use for integers, which is also the standard notation. And suppose Z with subscript positive is set of positive integers. Okay, can you quickly give me a set builder notation of Z positive in terms of Z? Okay, so assuming that Z is the set of integers, okay, now what I want you to do is try out the set builder notation of Z positive in terms of Z. Okay, you have to write Z positive in terms of Z, but with the property that it's only positive integers. Very simple. Okay, first you will write the name of the set, then you have equal to, and now you have to tell me in set builder notation, how would you write Z positive in terms of Z? Anyone? Class, please, let's keep it interactive. I know this is kind of redundant for you because you have studied it some point of time. So let's keep it interactive so that, it's not boring. Okay. Excellent. Jamil, why is it modulo 2? Modulo 2 is normally for even, right? So it's just set of positive integers, right? So I can do it like this. I can say it is the set X, okay, such that, okay, let me see some more answers. Okay, so, oh, no issues. I thought you got it wrong. Okay, so Rohit, like you have written a capital Z, okay, don't use capital. Remember, we discussed in the beginning that members should always be in lowercase letters. So descriptive element should be a lowercase letter. So I can write X such that X belongs to Z, right? And X is greater than 0, okay, which most people have correctly pointed out. Okay, either I can write X belongs to Z, X is greater than 0, or this belongs to, I can in it itself move to the descriptive element. This is also allowed, okay, such that X is greater than 0. Okay, Dhananjay is there, X is greater than 0, not Z, right? Because Z is a set. Okay, this is very simple, but you need to be a little careful about the notations. Okay, so element is what is greater than 0, not the entire set. So both are valid notations. Either you put a descriptive element and then state its properties, or belonging property you can also state before, right? Okay, so let us now see some very commonly used sets, which you should always remember now. Okay, these are like kind of standard. So capital N is always used for natural numbers. Okay, in a lot of books, people tend to include zero in natural numbers. Okay, so don't get confused. A lot of scientists think that 0 is also a natural number. So there is a lot of debate on that, whether 0 is a natural number or not. But in a lot of books, you will find 0 included in this n, or sometimes they consider n to be simple natural numbers like we have studied in our school, and they use n subscript 0 to denote that natural numbers plus 0. Okay, but in general, unless it is stated, you should consider n to be including 0. Yes, I know, like from our school we have always studied that natural numbers is 1, 2 and so on, and whole numbers is 0 and natural numbers, right? But a lot of people, you can, there are a lot of debates and articles like wherein mathematicians argued that actually 0 is also a natural number. So a lot of books you will see, even the ones I have referenced, use 0 as part of n. That's why I cleared it out there. But a lot of places you will also see what we have been studying at our high school level, that n is natural numbers, and if they use it with a 0, it is the representation of whole numbers. Okay, generally otherwise, like when you come to this standard, you will never see a set representation for whole numbers. Okay, there's no such specific set, because they tend to override this notation for whole numbers. Okay, so please keep that in mind, because a lot of times uh, it's not mentioned. Okay, so they assume that 0 is included. The second important set which is commonly used is integers, which is always represented by z. Okay, so say z represents the set of integers, and if you have z superscript or subscript plus, it's only the positive integers, and similarly the vice versa. If I have z negative, it's the set of negative integers. So that is your natural numbers and integers. Similarly, you have set q, which is the set of your rational numbers. Okay, that is in the form of p by q, where both p and q are integers and q is not equal to 0. Okay, so you can see this is the set builder notation for rational numbers. Another set is your set of real numbers, which is represented by r. And similarly, like integers, you can have r positive, r negative, which is the positive or real, negative real numbers. And the last is the set of complex numbers, which is represented by c. Okay, so in general, these are the most commonly used sets that you will come across throughout this course, and also in the, in your coming courses. So these are the standard ones: standard set of all the natural numbers, standard set of all the integers, or rational, real or complex numbers. Okay, so whenever you have to address any of these sets, you don't need to list them or list their set builder notation, just use their name. That's it. Okay, so is that clear? Any questions till this point? Okay, so far we just saw what is a simple set. It's an unordered collection of distinct objects. And then we saw some notations of it. One was the roster method, wherein you list all the members. And the second one was set builder notation, wherein you specify the property. Okay, and then now we saw these commonly used sets, which are natural numbers, integers, real, rational, and complex numbers. Okay, so before we move ahead, let's just quickly revisit our notations. So suppose I have to write set of all odd positive integers less than 10. Okay, now try to use these commonly used sets. Okay, instead of writing the statement, right? Like here I had written simply a statement x such that x is an odd positive integer. Try to write the commonly used sets for the set builder notation. Can you rewrite the set builder notation for odd integers? Okay, without using the statement. Try to use as many mathematical symbols as you can for O. Yeah. So O is equal to what? So avoid using statements. Use as many mathematical uh, symbols you can. Okay, even the common use sets. Okay. So Jamil, now you missed it. Okay, it's odd positive integers. Excellent. Okay, so Hasib has given one. Jamil, can you correct your one? Yeah. So Aditya, this is also correct. But as I said, try to use more mathematical symbols, right? That's why I revisited this one. Okay. Any more attempts this simple? Come on, try. So Rahul, you made the same mistake. Okay. Yes, that's good. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so most people are writing correct. So just one point. So all these belong, like x belongs to z. As I said, you can also move it towards the left of your vertical bar. Okay, that's also allowed. Excellent. So O you can write in numerous ways, like people have written in the answers. Okay, I'll just state one of those ways, which I guess someone also had mentioned. I think Hasi. So I can also state it like this, right? X such that 2x plus 1. Okay, let me just such that x is equal to say 2 n plus 1, where n belongs to natural numbers. Okay, but Hasib, there was a correction. You had written n uh, x is strictly less than 4, right? That means the last you can take is 3, right? Either you can write x is less than equal to 4, or you can write x is strictly less than 5, right? So this is one possible notation. Other possible notation is, instead of this, you use the modulo notation. Okay, like Jamil and others have done. You do x modulo 2. If it is a odd, so we know that the remainder will be 1. Okay, and you can show that x is belongs to positive integers, so z positive. Okay, so there are very different methods to do it. Like someone has also, instead of using natural numbers, stated the limits 0 to 10. That's also all allowed. Okay, but just be careful when you are using less than. Okay, when to use less than and when to use less than or equal to. Okay, sometimes you tend to use strict inequality and you miss out the cases. Okay, so be careful about that. Okay, excellent. So I guess all of you did this correct. Now please attempt the second one. Set of integers restricted to an interval minus 5 and 5, but both included. Okay, so this is what I meant by these symbols. Yeah. So set P of integers. So you can easily represent integers by notation. Restricted to interval minus 5 and 5, both included. Excellent. So if the one side of interval is wrong, otherwise it's perfect. Okay, excellent. So I guess all of you have done it correctly. So as I said, you can shift belonging equation here also. Other than that, you say x belongs to integers and it's within interval minus 5 and 5. Okay, since both are included, so you don't use a strict inequality, right? So both of them are allowed. You can also have x belongs to z here or on this side. Okay, just to reduce it, you can just shift it here. Okay, great. So most people have done it correctly. Okay, excellent. So this was how to make set builder notation. Okay, now let's quickly revisit roster method also. Can you now just quickly decrypt it back? Okay, instead of building the set builder, list the roster notation of this first set. Please keep in mind the equalities. Okay, so what is the A? A is X such that X is in natural numbers, but the property is it's even and it's strictly less than 11. Okay, excellent. Right, and what about this one? Excellent, it's simple, right? So X is even and strictly less than 11. So all the even numbers starting from 2 till 10, and similarly X between 3 and 9. So 3 and 9 are not included. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it was just a quick brush up uh, of set notations. Okay, great. So we saw set, we saw what are set notations. So before I move ahead, I'll just discuss a short topic before concluding. One important perspective: how or where are set related to computer science directly? Okay, so one very good example of sets is data types. Okay, since you have already seen programming languages, so data type is also a type of set. Okay, so if you recall, we have studied various, there are various data types that we use, even if we consider C programming language, int, float, bool, all of that are also actually sets. Okay, so sets are very directly related to our computer science because our fundamental thing, data type is the most fundamental thing in any programming language. Okay, so any programming language depends on data type, and data type in itself is basically based on set. Okay, we'll discuss this more when we discuss set operations, but you should have this in mind. Where is set related directly to our programming languages? Okay, so let's move to now other various distinct elements and properties of sets. The first of which is subsets, right? So, what is a subset? So, we say a particular set is said to be a subset of some other set if every element in a set is also an element of that set. Okay, so if I consider two sets A and B, if every element, and every is very important, of set A is also an element of set B, okay, then we say that A is a subset of B. Okay, which means that for all elements A in A, if they belong to A, it implies that A also belongs to B. Then we say that A is subset of B, right? And the next notation we introduce here is the set membership notation. So if every element of A also belongs to B, okay, we say that A is subset of B or A is contained in B. Okay, or in other words, if we just reverse the notation, then we can say B contains A. Okay, both mean the same. Okay, depending on which direction you use, it is either contained in or it contains. Right, and similarly, like we did for membership operator, if A is not subset of B, we use the same notation but with a vertical line. Okay, now how do you prove something is not subset of B? Okay, there this every point becomes clear. Since we know that for a set to be a subset of another set, it needs to have all the elements. Every element of that set should be also an element of B. Okay, so if you have to prove that it's not a subset, you need to just show that it has at least one element which does not belong to that set. Okay, so if in A there's even a one element which is not in B, by that you can say that A is not subset of B. Okay, and this is very important. Like currently it seems very simple, every and at least one, right? But as and when you move to proofs, this is very important. Okay, to prove that something is not set of subset of something, what you just need is to show that there exists just one element, at least one element, which does not belong to that set. Okay, so let's try to see what does it mean to be a subset of a particular set. Okay, So suppose I give you a set, say A. It has elements, say 1, 2. Okay, and another set which has elements, say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and another set, say C, which has elements 3 and 1 and 4. Okay, now to show that a set is a subset of another set, you have to show for all elements of that set it should also belong to other set. Okay, so if we consider A and B for this matter, so if you look at this, all the elements of A, 1 and 2, belong to B, right? So what we can say is A is subset of B, right? Now let me try to see the other relation. Is B subset of A? Okay, for this I need to show all the elements of B should be in A, which is not true, right? Because 3 and 4 are there, which is not in A, right? What about A and C? So what about A and C? Is A a subset of C or not? A is not subset, right? Because uh, 2 is not present in C, right? So let us see some more examples. So consider the following sets A, B, and C. Can you tell me all possible relations? Can you tell me all possible subset, not subset relation between A, B, and C? Okay, excellent. Okay, so C has elements 1 and 3. Okay, and if you look at A and B, both of them have those elements. So definitely C is a subset of A as well as C is a subset of B. Okay, any other subsets? Right, these are the only subsets. Other than that, A cannot be a subset of B because it has some extra elements. Similarly, B cannot be subset of C because it's already a larger set, right? Okay, excellent. So this was subset, right? Now here you can see what was our fundamental basis. Our fundamental basis, we said, is every element of A should also be an element of B, right? But what about the following? If I say A is, say, 1 comma 2, and there is some other set, say 1 comma 1 comma 2. Okay, so what can you say about this? Both are actually same set, right? Why? Because repetition and order doesn't change things, right? So they are also equal, right? So when we write this notation, member with a equal to, it says that there is a chance that these can also be equal to each other, right? But what we also have a different notation called proper subsets. Okay, what is now a proper subset? Okay, one was a subset, simple subset. If I say A is subset of B, then what I mean is they can also be equal, like this case. Okay, but what is now a proper subset? Suppose we have two sets A and B. A is said to be a proper subset, okay, which means without this dash or underbar. A is said to be a proper subset of B, or in other words, B will be known as its superset if and only if A is subset of B, but A is not equal to B. Okay, so we say that A is subset of proper subset of B if all the elements of A belong to B, but they are not equal. Okay, what does it mean? What does this condition mean? If all elements of A belong to B, but they are not equal. What does this condition mean? Exactly. It means that B should definitely have some extra elements which are not there in A. Okay, not the repetition part, right? Because repetition does not mean distinct elements. So if we want A to be proper subset of B, it means that the superset, okay, in which A is contained, it should definitely have some extra elements. Okay, and by extra elements I mean extra distinct elements, okay, which are different, and there is no, like, there's no concept of repetition. Okay, we want extra distinct elements there in B. Like you can see in this, 1 2 3 is fully contained in 1 2 3 4 5, right? But there are extra elements in this which are not there in this set. Okay, so such kind of relation is known as proper subset. Okay, and the set in which this is contained, it's known as superset. Okay, so we saw two notations. One is a subset of, and other is proper subset. Okay, when we say just it's a subset of, we don't rule out this condition that they can be equal as well, right? But when we use this proper subset notation, it definitely means that they cannot be equal. You necessarily have to have an extra element in B which is not there in A. Okay, is that clear, the difference between proper subset and a subset? So I'll stop there, it's almost the time.